Hello, everyone. My name is always Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. Now, we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow. For those listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave a rating for the podcast. Now, if you're joining us live, drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Jeremy Hans, and he's an entrepreneur who's founded multiple businesses after over a decade in well, more than that, in corporate. So let's put it let's call it that. He's also experienced the liquidation of one of those businesses. So Jeremy, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Uwais. Really happy and excited to be here today.
So let's jump straight in. Tell us your story. Where do you come from? And even outside of work, who is Jeremy Hans? Give us a backstory.
Well, Jeremy Hans is a family man, first and foremost. I don't need much outside of my family. Not someone that needs a lot of friends. My family is basically my everything. So, born and raised in Cape Town, grew up on the Cape Flats, and my dream was just to get out. It was not the most not a wealthy upbringing. I just had this desire to make a better life for myself. Always had the desire from a young age, and I just worked hard. Um, Fortunately, I was blessed with a little bit of brains. Combined that with a bit of hard work and dedication, and yeah, I achieved some success in the corporate world. In fact, lots of success in the corporate world. Made lots of mistakes, but that's really where I sort of found myself, became a leader, more than just a manager, a leader of people, a mentor, and ultimately, you know, leaving the corporate world. Uh, I always thought I'd be a career employee, but at a certain stage in life, you start to question where you want to go, and I made the decision to jump that ship and start the business.
Okay. And outside of work?
Outside of work, my interest, I'm sort of devoted Christian. My faith is very important to me. I have a very few friends. One of my hobbies, which I don't get to do too much, is golf. And one of the things I really enjoy that I haven't done in years is scuba diving. Actually, a qualified scuba diver, and I've got some harrowing stories. Um, Getting lost in Falls Bay, getting swept away by currents in Falls Bay amongst the sharks. Luckily, I attended official training and we managed to make it back using our they call the buddy system. So yeah, I haven't gotten to do that in a long time, but yeah, something I really enjoy and want to do again.
Maybe it's a good thing that you haven't gotten to do that in a long time. I'm sure your wife will say it's a good thing. But like you said, I mean, you mentioned you spent over a decade working for a listed company. I mean, actually, 14 years in one large company, that's a very long time. And most people, once you reach, let's call it 10 years, people become lifers, like you
Yeah.
mentioned. So what made you decide, okay, let's make the switch? There must have been a tipping point. There must have been something that spurred the change.
Yeah, I think when you reach a certain point, and I think it's important for anyone that's in the corporate sort of sector and corporate world is I mean, at some point you have to make a decision. I had my philosophy was in corporate was always if I can't be replaced, I can't get promoted. So I made myself, my aim was always to make myself redundant, which sounds a bit weird, but that was my aim because it was about mentoring other people, and I had the privilege to do that. And I got to a point where I'd mentored lots of people, took people from being supervisors to managers, and achieved a lot in terms of what the business is all about. Involved in acquisitions, in WMS implementations. I made myself available for projects, and I got to a point where it wasn't challenging me anymore, and it literally felt like my brain was dying, and I had to ask myself the question: Are you willing to do this for another 20 years? And the answer was no.
Okay. Honesty, I appreciate it. Uh, I know since then you've opened.
Oops.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah. Oops. Oh, my bad for having phones on.
Somebody's tried to get hold of you badly there.
Yeah, badly. Okay, that's it. Sorry about
So
that.
no problem. So, I mean, you've opened multiple. You've been a founder of a few businesses. You've also had the experience of one of those businesses being liquidated, and I can't imagine how that must feel. If it's okay, can you talk to us about the liquidation process, like whatever you think is important for the audience?
Well, it's a painful process, and it's an expensive process. It's it was a decision I made because I was in a business where I didn't have complete legal control, so I didn't have the majority shareholding, and there's a lesson learned there. So I had three partners, and when COVID hit, there was just a disagreement, a change of heart, and people weren't willing to make the sacrifices, and one of them was not taking a salary so you can keep the people employed. And so different opinions, and that's why it's important to make sure that you align before you go into partnerships, and it's not a decision you should take lightly. And I speak about that quite a bit on LinkedIn. It's something you really have to take your time with. You should have no doubts about who you're going into partnership with, and that was the case. I chose the wrong partners. No mistake about that. And when the tough times hit, they weren't willing to stick it out. And I think about a few months after we got back to work after COVID, I decided, because my hands were tied, I couldn't make decisions for the business because of the shareholding, and that's when I decided to liquidate. And it's a lengthy process. It's an expensive process. It is a painful process, and the business was flourishing. It could have survived, but my hands were tied, and I couldn't make any decisions without being having a legal issue. So it was time to close it and move on.
And I'm sure, like, there might be similarities that people experience, not necessarily liquidation, but going through tough or very, very tough times at work that you don't plan for. How do you manage your emotions when dealing with a situation like that?
It's difficult. You have some weird thoughts. I can guarantee you that. It is there's lots of anger, there's lots of blame, there's lots of searching for what went wrong. What could I have done different? But you just have to move forward. And to be quite honest, I should have closed the business 6 months earlier. I was hanging on to something. It was emotional. It wasn't. I wasn't. I wasn't being pragmatic in my thinking. I should have cut. I should have cut the ties. I was thinking about the people. I was thinking about what people would say. I was worried about shame. Um, and in hindsight, it's easy to say this is what I should have done. but when you're in it, it's difficult because you're so clouded by so many things, like the things that I just mentioned. So I think if it should happen again, I'd know what to do.
You know who to come to.
Yeah.
For the audience, we'll be responding to questions towards the end, so please add your questions to the comment section now so that we don't miss them. So now, I mean, you've experienced the closure of one business, and your next act is let me start another one. So, what gave you the motivation to decide to start a new one? I mean, most people would probably, after going through that harrowing experience, might say, maybe I should go back to corporate, a secure job, and carry on with life.
Yeah, you obviously have those thoughts. You have to think about your family. You have to think about income. It's about surviving. Um, and uh, and what actually happened was, one of my my sort of a good friend, someone I met in corporate 20 years prior, called me up and said, "Hey, you want to start a business together?" And I said, "Yeah, let's go for it." And that's what we did. So this is someone that became a supplier in my business. We met in corporate. He was a supplier to the company I managed in corporate. And he became a supplier to my business when I started my own business. But then he just, we kind of parted ways, and then he just called me and said, "Listen, I know what's happened. Let's start this business and let's see what we can do." So it's just, I suppose, the power of relationships. 20 years on, I think I gave him a chance at the time. His business was just starting out. I knew he knew his stuff. He was a good person as well. And I suppose that the relationship sort of bore fruit 20 years later.
And are you working together still to this day?
So we've taken it even further. So we're partnering on a few other businesses now. So and there's something cooking, something that I have to make a decision on over the next few months. So we're looking at branching out nationally with a training business. It's a sort of forklift drivers and reach truck drivers. So it's just training, and there's other things on the horizon. So lots of decisions to be made in the near future.
Sounds exciting. Sounds exciting. I want to step back a little bit, just your time in corporate, because I know some of the people are experiencing this way. I mean, you spent 5 years as a committee member of a pension fund. Now that sounds like a lot of responsibility for managing the pensions of maybe thousands of people. Talk to us about that experience and how you manage that responsibility.
Well, as a Manco member representing the employees, I obviously had a big responsibility. So it's managing investments, making important decisions about there's so many things that happen when people pass away, and the families that come out of the woodwork wanting to claim money that's available. But it was a learning experience because that was something completely new for me. But I think if you show sort of character and you show emotional intelligence in the workplace, um, I think it was an easy choice for the people to make, and I think I added a different level of thinking to that committee for those 4 years. One of the issues that we have in this country, and it's a big issue, and hopefully someone can solve it, is the unclaimed benefits. We are sitting on close to, I think we're almost on 100 billion now in unclaimed benefits. It's a ridiculous amount of money that's just sitting there and waiting to be claimed by people, and we can't find them because there's no contact details. And you employ the services of people to track and find these people so we can pay the money, but it's a thankless task, and we're not making any headway there because that number's just creeping up. I think when I left corporate, I think the unclaimed benefits were around 60 billion. I think it's probably close to 100 billion now.
Sorry, I'm talking with my mic off. Sorry,
Yeah,
I was saying,
it's-
no, I said it, I've also listed that there's people who are listed with just their first name and not their second name, and I don't know how that managed to happen. Uh, but I suppose it happened many years ago, and then we're feeling the brunt of it today.
yeah,
Just going back to, I mean, you're clearly managing different businesses and different types of businesses. Well, you probably have to have different, not different hats, but I mean, each business requires a different thing from you at the
yeah,
same time. And how do you manage those different things all at once? Because I mean, it feels like you're spreading yourself thin.
yeah. Look, I think one of my strengths and one of my earlier my second sort of mentor that I really respect is he always told me, now, Jeremy, if there's one thing that you can that you're good at is that you're very resourceful. And I think what I do well is connect the dots between different industries, different sort of knowledge bases, and I also read everything. I read absolutely everything. I love reading, not just books. I just read everything. I think I've read the SARS statistics that came out in its 400 pages. I just read it, and I think that helps you when when things happen and you are informed. You can connect the dots. And I think that's one of my strengths. I've also been fortunate to have worked in a few industries in FMCG, in construction. So I've exposed to different processes, different ways of work, and I've also managed hundreds of people over my career. So I've seen everything. So it's late in life, that experience makes your life easier and uh, makes you get to decisions quicker because you just have that knowledge base.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Well, we're coming towards the end of the show, but is there any last few words from you? Anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
Well, I'm embarking on a startup called Vat Daily. It's something I'm passionate about. Something it's just about what are the blind spots when you're starting a new business. As in corporate, you kind of protected from all the detail, and I experienced quite a few blind spots when starting my first business, and one of them was VAT and the liability, and being prepared and paying your VAT every 2 months. And what I found is that a lot of business owners spend the money that comes into the account, and they spend the VAT. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help business owners, entrepreneurs, be prepared for that payment and not sit with these cash flow issues, and the stress of not having that money available when it's due. So it's called VAT Daily, and yeah, hopefully people sign up to the wait list.
Sounds interesting. I think to end, to have a look at that daily and let's see how we take it from there. I think that's
Yeah.
a great way for the show to end. The show has been live on YouTube and should be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube and you feel that it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Jeremy, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thanks always. Have a great
Thanks,
evening.
everyone. Thanks, everyone,
Cheers.
for joining us.